In this video, we're technically analyzing Dogecoin, and we have the monthly chart open, and we can see that the monthly chart is very much interesting in that if you actually look at this area over here, we have what seems to be a triangle, which tells us that a breakout is imminent. We're either going to see a breakout to the upside or the downside, right? To add to this, another thing that I also want to point out is that we have the candlestick over here, and what it is a bearish candlestick with a small body and quite a long lower wick. And what it tells us is that there's a lot of liquidity stuck at that level where we have the candlestick. And as you guys know, liquidity is actually money that needs to be triggered by the market at one point or another. To add to this, we also have this candlestick over here. It is very much similar to that bearish candlestick in that it too has a small body and quite a long upper wick, and it too is a liquidity candlestick, and it tells us that there's a lot of money stuck at this level more or less. And as I said, remember guys that we have what seems to be a triangle, and that we either gonna see a breakout to the upside, right, or to the bottom side, due to the fact that we have this triangle over here, as you guys can see. Having said that, just remember I also mentioned that we have liquidity at this point as well as at this point where we have those two candlesticks, because they are carrying a lot of liquidity at those levels, right? Anyway, from here what I'm gonna do is head down to the weekly chart, and here we are on the weekly chart. And on the weekly chart we can see that the triangles that I spoke of are actually better visible, as you guys can see. And as I said, we're either going to see a breakout to the upside or the bottom side. But what else do we see on the charts that we should be paying attention to? Remember, on the monthly chart I spoke about how we have this candlestick over here, which is a liquidity candlestick, and I said that there's a lot of money stuck at that level. To add to that, we also have another candlestick at this point, which is very much similar to this one, in that it too has a small body and quite a long lower wick, and it also means that we have a lot of money stuck at that level. And as you guys know, the markets will always go to where the money is. To add to this, we have another one at this point. If I can just show it to you, right, we have another one at this point, which is also a liquidity candlestick, and I'm just going to mark it as well because it's very much important. Just bear with me. Let's have a look. There we go, 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 there we go. So what else do we see on the weekly chart that we should be paying attention to? So on the weekly chart, as much as I said to you guys that we have what seems to be a flag or a triangle rather at that level, and that a breakout is imminent, to me it seems as if we're gonna see the market actually move further down, right, to around these areas. Number one, because of those candlesticks that I spoke about, right, that are carrying all of that liquidity, right? And number two, because if you actually look at this area over here, we have what seems to be an M structure or a double top, which has a neckline more or less at that level. I believe that should price or the market close sufficiently below the neckline of this M structure, chances are we're going to see the market move further down to grab those liquidity points, as well as to complete this very nice M structure we have there, right? So what else do we see on this chart that we should be paying attention to? In fact, before we continue, I just want to add a neckline for that M structure. Just bear with me. There we go. So we could say that this level over here more or less is the neckline of this very nice M structure. And just remember that we're just waiting for the market to close below that neckline. If it does so, we will then wait for the market to head up to the neckline to test it, and where we have the neckline is where we would look for those potential selling opportunities, especially if the neckline actually aligns with any key numbers on the Fibonacci retracement tool, right? Anyway, what else do we see on this chart that we should be paying attention to? At this point I don't see much, so what I will do is head down to the daily chart. Let's have a look, let's have a look, let's have a look. And here we are on the daily chart. And just to recap, remember on the weekly chart I spoke about how we have this M structure which has a neckline at that point, and I said to you guys that ideally we want to see the market at this point closing below that neckline so that we can wait for price to head back to the neckline to test it. And at that neckline is where we would look for those potential selling opportunities, and our take profits should be those levels where we have all of those liquidity candlesticks, right? Anyway, what else do we see on the daily chart that we should be paying attention to? Another thing that I see that is also very much interesting is that in regards to the daily chart, we have this area over here, and as much as I said that we have this M structure over here, I hope you guys can see that the market has been moving rather sideways, and it also says to us that a breakout is imminent. We're going to see a breakout either to the bottom side or the upside. And just also remember how I spoke about that triangle on the bigger time frames, right? Remember that triangle as well as we proceed. Anyway, what else do we see on this chart that we should be paying attention to? So another thing that I see is that as much as we have this M structure over here, we had another smaller M structure over here. It's also an overextended M structure because that first leg is much higher than that second leg, and it too has a neckline at that point. We saw at this level, at the zone, price breaking to the bottom side of that neckline, going back to the neckline to test it, and at this point is where we should have looked for those potential selling opportunities, especially if the neckline actually aligns with any key numbers that we have on the Fibonacci retracement tool. And because, in my humble opinion, the smaller M structure started at this point, ideally I would love to see it end more or less at this point, right? But don't confuse the smaller M structure with that bigger one that I spoke about. Let me just zoom out a bit. Remember earlier I spoke about how we have this one, right, which has a neckline more or less at that point. Do not confuse it with this smaller one over here, which has a neckline more or less at that level. Can you guys see that? And the smaller one actually started at this point, and ideally I would love to see it end at this point. This tells me that there is plenty of scope for the market to continue to move further down to complete that M structure. So what else do we see on this chart that we should be paying attention to? At this point I should be adding a channel. Nonetheless, because we have the sideways movement, I don't think it's necessary for us to add a channel. Nonetheless, if I were to zoom in, you'd also see that we have actually a channel at this point, which also tells us that the market is in a downward trajectory, and that chances are we're going to see the market actually move that down to complete this very nice M structure. I hope you guys can see that, right? From here, what I'm going to do is head down to the H4 chart. Just bear with me, guys. In fact, before I do so, let me just actually add that channel that I just spoke about. Just bear with me, guys. There we go, there we go, there we go. There we go, there we go, there we go, right? So, as I said, the neckline of that M structure was over there, right? Price broke to the bottom side, went up to the neckline to test it, and then we saw the market push further down. I just want to add a neckline to that M structure as well, so that you guys can see exactly what it is that I'm referring to as I go along, and so that we don't get confused. Let's see. There we go, more or less, right? And I said to you guys that we expect price to head down to this level to complete this very nice M structure. From here, what I'm going to do is head down to the H4 chart, seeing that we don't really see much of interest on this particular chart as far as technical analysis goes. Let's have a look. I'm just going to fix my channel somewhat, and just remember that we need to ensure that whatever drawings that we add to our charts are as accurate as possible, just to ensure that ultimately when we do execute, our execution is also very much interesting, or rather accurate. And here we are on the H4 chart, and on the H4 chart we can see that remember guys, we spoke about the smaller M structure over here, which has a neckline at that point, right? As much as we have that, I hope you guys can also see that in regards to the H4 chart, we also have an opposing structure in the form of an overextended W structure. It's an overextended W structure because that first leg is much lower than the second leg, and it has a neckline at that point, right? In order for us to take this W structure seriously, in my humble opinion, we need to see price at least break the neckline at this point, come back to the neckline to test it, and at this point we might look for those potential buying opportunities, right? And if we do find any buying opportunities, I believe that our take profit should be around this level where we have this trend line, or at this level where we have the neckline of that huge M structure, which is also now a very strong level of resistance. And that's where we would look for further selling opportunities, because as I said guys, remember that M structure that I spoke about started at this point, and ideally we want to see it end at this level as well. So this would be a minor W structure over here. It's just a minor W structure, and as I said, should price close above that neckline, we will then wait for the market to head back to the neckline to test it, and at the neckline is where we may potentially buy around perhaps this level or even this level. However, having said that, my bias is to sell, right, at least to this level over here, which is in line with where that smaller M structure started.